Trump has officially won the election. Inflation rates are out of control. And guess what? So are the mortgage rates. So what is going to happen with mortgage rates in the future? That is the biggest question America is asking. Because guess what? The Federal Reserve dictates all our future wealths. And I want to get you in the know for at least that you know how the plan is going to get attacked, what policy is they're going to make, and what regulation they're going to deregulate, all in this video. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to note is that the 10-year treasury actually has been increasing since we've known that Donald Trump, because all he's been talking about is tariffs. Tariffs are inflationary by nature because items from China, instead of getting taxed at or tariffs at 2 to 3%, they're likely going to be closer to that 10 to 20%, or maybe even more. He's mentioned even 30. This is going to drastically change our imported goods because his goal as a policy guy and politician is to make America great again, meaning make products in America that we also consume in America. Makes a lot of sense. It makes us self-sustainable. And I think it's his entire goal as a politician and to make America great again. So if you just understand macroeconomically, I think things are very simple. But what the 10-year treasury did is it actually increased about 0.5%. We were all the way down to 3.6 at one point in, sometime this summer. And then all of a sudden now in November, we're all the way back up to that 4.3 land. And that's a very drastic thing because what is affected by the 10-year treasury? Interest rates. Where you were seeing interest rates, mortgage rates, maybe in the low 6s, and now you're seeing them over 7 again. It gets really degrading, especially in an already tight environment to buy homes. It gets very challenging when the rate increases by almost 0.75%. The second thing I really want to note is that the 2 and 10-year yield inversion. You may not looked at this, but what the 2 and 10-year really can tell you, and you can just Google this, the 2-year versus the 10-year, it really gives you a chart, and a chart will be either negative or positive. And likely when we're going into a recession, or almost every time we've went into a recession in history, is that when the yield inversion is very negative and it goes positive, it usually means a recession is coming because it usually happens very quickly. It means that they're dropping rates to keep the economy rolling because the economy has rolled into a recession and they need to stimulate it by decreasing interest rates. And the yield curves get very weird, meaning to borrow 2-year money costs you more than borrowing 10-year money. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but you can actually get more by just borrowing for 2 years, meaning you'll get 4.5% versus 4.1% or 4.2% on 10 years. Doesn't make much sense, but the yield curve has recently, within the last few months, has uninverted, meaning we went from negative to positive, and we haven't really felt the recession yet. So is a soft landing actually happening? Is the Federal Reserve cutting rates at a fast enough pace? They're all data dependent. So if you watch these CPI data, PPI, all these different things that come out that are on social media, maybe you hear about them on Yahoo Finance or something, you will see that everything is dictated by data, right? It can adjust in the stock market by waves. I mean, hell, freaking Elon Musk can wave the word Dogecoin with Trump, and guess what? It goes off the charts. It's amazing the amount of power that these guys have, but it's also amazing the amount of power that the news does regulate. It will adjust things by billions of dollars every single day. So I want to talk a little bit more about these tariffs because, of course, we don't want imports from China. America really doesn't want to take everything from China just because it's cheaper, right? They're over there using slave labor, literally paying people pennies a day, dollars a day to produce all these different products. And then we ship them into China because they're very cheap. And what they do is they help drive down costs for America. But then it also doesn't incentivize America because we can't produce products. We don't have slave labor. We have higher paying jobs here, right? And so that's really where Donald Trump wants to tie into. He wants to reduce the amount of imports that we have. He wants to boost, even though that's inflationary, because that will create inflation because products will go up in value. And that was what the Democratic policy was saying. And while they're not wrong, but Trump's plan is to get more products made in America, drill more oil in America, do more things in America because we can, and increase the paying of those jobs substantially, right? Because if if those people are getting paid a few dollars a day in China, and over here they're getting paid a few hundred or several $100s a day to do the products in America, it's going to cost much more, but they're also going to create more high paying jobs here, because guess what? If we're not buying the products from China anymore, we're going to have to buy the product somewhere. And if it's in America, there's going to be a lot more demand in America, which will also raise the wages because there's going to be probably lower unemployment. And so yes, you have to understand how a tariff works. It can't be great for every industry, but for America as an overall, it can be very great for increasing your wages in the middle class, especially. Another big topic that Donald Trump has been talking about is, and also Elon Musk is part of this, is reducing. He went into X and they had thousands of employees. He cut it down. I don't know if they went down to 40. I mean, they went down to the bare minimum of people to run this business. Guess what? They're still running X. They're getting advertisers back, and he cut the expenses substantially. And guess what? He just did that. He's seen what they actually needed. And then they filled the positions back in, right? But he's nowhere near where they used to be. He's at 20% of what they ever used to be. And guess what? The thing is actually still working. The employees are utilized better. And then what Elon is introducing that to Musk and saying, hey, let's look at the government. And honestly, let's just ask ourselves, what are the government workers we have today, right? Like, let's look at the government workforce. We usually know there's softer, cushier jobs, right? Not a lot expected, a lot of flexibility. And guess what? They can, work when they want to, from wherever they want to, 1 day a week in the office, maybe never. It's just remote. Well, guess what that does? It creates a ton of inefficiency for the government itself, and they cut all the office that they needed, but that didn't do anything. I think the operational efficiency just dropped. Just think about let's just think about like going to get your updated tags on your car, the driver or the motor vehicle departments. You could delete the motor vehicle department in every state, every government area, and you could probably all put it on an app. Hey, your licenses are up for new renewal. Oh, great. Update them. Why do we need to have all these motor vehicle departments open? It doesn't make much sense. Cut it. These are just one resemblance. There's many other sectors of the government that are just very inefficient or not even needed at all. Most things can be done with AI or technology, but the government will just keep hiring more people and hiring more people because that's what they do, because they don't have a budget that they need to hit. They just get the amount of money that they need from America, meaning you, the U.S. taxpayers, or they start printing the money just so they can feed themselves. And that's the deficit they're in. They've never, if America ever ran like a business, it would be, they're losing $2 trillion a year. There's no way they would ever make money. It's just a money loss situation. How do we get back? And this is what Elon would say, is to go in and kind of treat it like X, not necessarily it's a business, but it's our government. Cut it down and then figure out the pieces that you need to fill in back in because you need it there. And that will help reduce inflationary pressures, help reduce this crazy deficit that we're doing. It'll help reduce the printing of money. It'll help reduce that of any inflation that we're causing. That is where America will get great again. We just need to reduce the amount of paying jobs out there that are just non-productive at all. If you can reduce that, you really will get production in America again. Our government is just so inefficient. I think everyone, both parties, Democrats and Republicans, can meet and agree at every local bar from LA to New York, and they can agree that the government is ran inefficiently. But how do you fix that? You need to take bold moves. Someone's going to get hated from that. I don't think Donald Trump cares about getting hated, or does Elon Musk. And so if they want to go ahead and do that, I think that it may be a lot of ties and a lot of legalities to get that done, but that's what it's going to take to get America efficient again. So you want to look at something else, and it's called regulation. And regulation is everywhere, no matter where you're at or what you think. But in construction specifically, I like to talk about regulation because housing is a big problem in our nation. Everything is unaffordable. There's no inventory. There's no one building. They're not building at the way that demand is meeting. Demand is over meeting supply by a large capacity right now. So we need to talk about regulation because I just want to talk about, I heard this on the All In podcast. I love those guys. And they talk about even in the 1980s, they all live in California. And in the 1980s, California has gotten 50%, even from all the way up about 30 years later, about 50% more regulation than they already have. Think about it. They got to hit all these green milestones. They got to hit all these building regulatories. It takes you, if you want to get a permit to build a shed in your backyard, it's going to cost you 15 grand because someone needs to check the land. Someone needs to check the shingles. Someone needs to check the windows. Someone needs to just check everything. And it takes time. It could take you up to 2 years to get a permit for a shed or an ADU, whatever it is in your backyard. And I'm just talking about building regulations right now. There's also many other regulations that slow down businesses. The most successful companies in the world don't have a lot of regulation, a little more wide open, may make a couple more mistakes or have more mistakes in there, but they'll learn from that and adjust. And that's the way you should be. When you're just regulating everything down and just slowing everything down, guess what gets very expensive? And what's very expensive in California? Housing. Everything is expensive. Why? Because there's regulation on everything you do. To build a gas station is going to take you years. To build any infrastructure is going to take you years and years and years because it's layers upon layers of regulation. And I believe that Elon Musk moved away from the regulation, moved into Texas. I believe that the Republicans really believe in deregulating and really reducing the amount, maybe even in the construction world. That is the biggest regulated world that I live in. And no matter, I live right I'm in North Dakota, which is very non-regulated, but it's all built in Minnesota. Laundry list of things that you need for every year. And the amount of people that you got to talk to just to get something done over there is substantially different. And I would say Minnesota is right behind California in the form of regulation. And when you do that, it chokes down housing, it chokes down everything, it chokes down the builder, it makes things more expensive, it slows the process down, and you really just cannot make it efficient. It's inflationary. Regulation is tied to inflation, which is the very last thing that we have to talk about. That is where you're going to reduce your inflationary measures, right? You have to deregulate. You have to literally give the politicians a cut. We need half of them at bare minimum, maybe even 30% of them is what some of the experts are saying to run the government still properly and do what we are doing today. So I'd be curious in the comments below, what else do you think the policies are these the ways that you think the policies should be taken, or what else could be added to help run down some of this inflationary measures? Please put in the comments and I might make another one about this because this is a very hot topic. Guys, if you like this type of stuff, follow and subscribe for more.